One of the world's finest amusement parks, a forgotten cemetery, the ghost of a little girl. What's real and what's not? Welcome to Dog Street Cemetery. Southern Ohio is host to the second most visited amusement park in the United States, Kings Island. Coincidentally, the north end parking lot of the amusement park is home to a cemetery that is seldom visited at all. Completely forgotten until the park was constructed in the early 1970s, J.D. Hoff Cemetery, commonly referred to as Dog Street Cemetery, is the final resting place of several Ohio residents who died between 1803 and 1880. Due to its juxtaposition against a place of fun and amusement, Dog Street Cemetery has developed into the source of a most unusual park legend. While Kings Island is host to several ghost stories, including everything from Tower Johnny to Racer Boy to the Whitewater Canyon specter known as Woody, none come close to the level of fame or intrigue as the ghost of the little girl in the blue dress who wanders around the park. Her link to the park, you wonder? An unusual tombstone in Dog Street Cemetery, bearing the curious name Missouri Jane. The ghost of Missouri Jane has been witnessed in several locations throughout Kings Island Amusement Park. She's been seen on International Street both inside and outside of assorted shops. Guests reported her stepping aside for them near the American Heritage Music Hall, currently the Kings Island Theater and Fest House. Most commonly and unsurprisingly, she's often observed by tram operators and tourists wandering around the parking lot before the gates close for the evening. Admittedly, the available evidence linking Missouri Jane to being the 4-foot-tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in the blue dress is somewhat spurious at best. It is clear that she lived in the region, but some folks go as far as to suggest that Missouri Jane actually lived on the property that is now Kings Island. It is also rumored that her young life ended when she drowned in a reservoir on the property. But what are the facts? What do we really know about young Missouri Jane? Sadly, solid facts about Missouri Jane are few and far between. We know she was born June 27th of 1840 and died March 10th, 1846. She was the daughter of Nancy Galenor, Ray Malsbury, and Stephen Galenor. She likely had 3 siblings that she would have known during her short life. Her parents would go on to have 5 more for a total of 8 Galenor children. However, other records indicate that her parents had a total of 12 children. As far as her residence being on the same grounds as what now holds roller coasters and carousels, well, that's somewhat unlikely. The cabin that she is said to have lived in wasn't even constructed until long after her death, and the suggestion that she died in a drowning has no factual foundation whatsoever. It's far more likely that Missouri Jane died of cholera, an epidemic that was a deadly disease that ravaged southern Ohio between 1832 and 1851. After Missouri Jane's death, the family moved to Illinois. This bolsters her tragic tale as being the child who was truly left behind as the family moved out of the Ohio Valley. That's the end of Missouri Jane's earthly story. No additional specifics about the family shed any light on the time in which Missouri Jane was alive. If fate had not intervened and caused the construction of a place of wonder and amusement right next to her final resting place, she would likely have long been forgotten. Instead, here we are 180 years later, still talking about a 6-year-old girl with a peculiar name. There is contention in some research circles regarding the idea of suggesting that Missouri Jane is in fact the little girl in the blue dress that haunts Kings Island. Some consider this to be disrespectful. I tend to look at this from a slightly different point of view. Linking the two together is in fact not disrespectful at all. Quite the contrary. It's likely that Missouri Jane would not even exist in our collective consciousness had this link never been made. How many other children who spent a scant 6 years on this planet 180 years ago are people still talking about? In the end, I conclude that it doesn't really matter if Missouri Jane and the little girl in the blue dress are completely unrelated. I like to think that any 6-year-old would smile at the thought of scaring a bunch of adults. And I'm sure all of them would be happy just being remembered either way. Thanks for traveling with me today. And maybe, just maybe, I'll see you on the next video. If you enjoy videos about the randomness of our amazing world, consider clicking on the globe to subscribe, or maybe checking out one of the other videos right here.